Hello everyone, welcome to Logo Learnings. Today we are going to look the textbook The Indian Economic Development of Class 12 and the chapter 1 of it, that is the Indian Economy on the Eve of Independence. So this chapter I am going to divide this chapter into two parts, and this video is the part 1 where we are going to deal with the first three topics of this chapter, that is the low level of economic development under the colonial rule, agricultural sector and the industrial sector. So this tells about the economic condition of India soon after the independence. So we got independence on 15th August 1947, and this chapter discusses about the economic conditions of India between 1947 and 1990. So the first topic is low level of economic development under the colonial rule. So under the colonial rule, the heading itself specifies that we had a low level of economic development because the colonial government had no interest in developing the economy of India. So India had an independent economy before the advent of British rule. So before the British rule, we had an independent economy, an independent as well as prosperous economy. Then agriculture was the main source of livelihood. About 85% of people or the labor force in India worked in the agricultural sector because it was the most easy job during that time, or the people, most of the people were experienced in that field, and India was not much developed, we were not much what encouraged in manufacturing activities. Most of us were not educated, and such problems were there. We were not the latest technologies were not available. So due to such restrictions, most of the people worked in the agricultural sector, well known for its handicraft industry. So India was well known for its handicraft industries such as the cotton and jute textiles, then metals, then precious stoneworks, etc. Then India enjoyed a worldwide market. So we enjoyed a worldwide market for our products. It was having high demand in the world market because it had good reputation. It had good reputation. That was because the good reputation was because our goods were having high quality and was standardized. So we produced high quality and standardized goods. Then the next point is that the colonial government created and introduced many policies and regulated many laws to safeguard and protect and promote their interest, the colonial interest, and they had no intention to develop the Indian economy. So they have never tried to develop the Indian economy, but they had invented or introduced and regulated many laws and policies just to promote and protect their interest. They transformed India into a supplier of raw materials and a consumer of finished goods from Britain. So they just collected the raw materials from India and they just sold their goods. So they collected raw materials from India. They produced goods in Britain using our raw materials, and they supplied those raw materials to India. That means they sold out those raw materials in India. By collecting the raw materials from India, we are not able to produce finished goods on our own. So we just depend on the goods produced by Britain. That through that way, they created demand for the British produced goods. They never estimated in the national and the per capita income of India. So they have never estimated the national. They have never put any sincere efforts in estimating the national as well as per capita income of India. So what is national income and what is per capita income? National income is the total money value of all final goods and services produced in an economy during an accounting year. By the by, Per capita income is the average annual income earned by a citizen of a country during an accounting year. So, an accounting year is starting from April 1st and ending in March 31st of the next year. So, the per capita income is can also be defined as the per head availability of national income. So that's what national income and per capita income is. So there were many leaders who came forward to estimate the national income and per capita income of India, like Dadabhai Nauroji, William Digby, Frintley Shiraz, V.K.R.V. Rao, and R.C. Desai. So the first attempt to estimate the national income and per capita income was done by or made by Dadabhai Navroji. And the most significant and very important attempt was made by V.K.R.V. Rao. Then coming to the next topic, that is the agricultural sector. So agricultural sector is the primary sector. So the economy is divided into three sectors: the primary sector or the agricultural and the allied activities, agricultural sector and the allied activities. Then the second one is a secondary sector or the industrial or manufacturing sector. The third one is tertiary sector or the service sector. So the agricultural sector is where the Indian economy. So here the points that are given are the Indian economy was agrarian. So agrarian means most of the labor force in India was employed in or were employed in the agricultural sector or the primary sector. So about 85% of the people worked in the agricultural sector. So the Indian economy under the British colonial rule was agrarian. About 85% of the country's population lived mostly in villages and derived livelihood directly or indirectly from agriculture. So then the agricultural productivity became low. So the agricultural productivity became low during the colonial period. So the agriculture stagnated and deteriorated. So there was a change in the small rate, and that change was in deterioration. So the agriculture continued to experience stagnation and not infrequently unusual deterioration. So the agricultural productivity became low. Then many land settlement systems were introduced in India, like the zamindari. So the zamindars collected rent regardless of the farmer's economic condition. So whether the farmer is having good economic health or economic condition, or whether he is rich or poor, that is not at all a matter. But the zamindars will always collect rent during the correct intervals. They are not at all bothered about the farmer's economic conditions. That was because of the terms of revenue settlement. So, because of the terms of revenue settlement, the zamindars were not at all bothered about the economic conditions of the farmers or the cultivators. Then low levels of technology. So some other reasons for the deterioration or the stagnation of agricultural productivity or agricultural sector was low levels of technology. Then lack of irrigation facilities. So we lacked irrigation facilities. Then negligible use of fertilizers. So we were not using fertilizers. Then the next main point is commercialization of agriculture. So commercialization of agriculture, that means we have done agriculture for gaining money because the colonial government has forced us to produce cash crops. So cash crops are the crops which are used or produced for gaining money for commercial purposes. So the cash crops are the farmers of India were forced to cultivate cash crops instead of food crops such as wheat and rice, and they were forced to cultivate cash crops such as indigo and so on. So they started producing cash crops, which led to commercialization of agriculture. That was also to promote and safeguard the interest of colonial administration or Britain. So they just made us or forced us to do whatever they want, and that was not at all, and which were not at all good for the Indian economy, or which they have never done it for the development of the Indian economy. Then farmers neither had resources and technology nor had incentive to invest in agriculture. So they neither had resources and technology. So they were not at all having resources. That means any assets or resources to use in the process of agriculture, and they lacked the technology, or they had low levels of or indigenous technology, and had no incentive to invest in agriculture, or very less incentive, or very less money in their hand to invest in the agriculture. Then coming to the third point, that is the industrial sector. So in the industrial sector, Indian industrial base was not developed. So the Indian industries, so as in the case of agriculture, the colonial government neither had any intention to develop the Indian industries. They had never given any sincere efforts to introduce new techniques, or to develop the Indian economy as a whole. Then handicraft industries declined. So we saw in the starting that India had a well-known handicraft industry, but it declined because the colonial government was not at all interested to develop it, so it just declined. The colonial government deindustrialized India. It had two folds. So in two ways they deindustrialized India. It is the same thing that we have seen in the previous section, that is a low level of economic development in India. So that means the two ways where they saw India as a supplier of raw materials, as a mere supplier of raw materials, and a consumer of the finished goods from Britain. The same points are being explained here too. So they converted India into an exporter or a supplier of raw materials, and they converted India into a consumer of raw materials, finished goods from Britain. Britishers increased imports of cheap goods from Britain. So as they acquired the raw materials from India, they produced the finished goods. With those raw materials, as a result, we were not capable to produce, as we were not allowed to produce goods using our own raw materials. We were forced to depend on Britain produced goods, so we just purchased, they increased the demand for their commodity in India through that way. So progress of modern industries in India remained very slow. So we were having very slow progress in the development of the modern industries. So the cotton textile industries, the cotton textile mills of Indians, that means dominated by Indians, were set up in the western parts of India, like Maharashtra and Gujarat, whereas the jute mills dominated by the foreigners were set up in Bengal. Tata Iron and Steel Company, or the TISCO, was incorporated or started in the year 1907. Then no capital goods industries were developed in India. So India had no capital good industries. So capital good industries are the industries which produce machine goods. Then contribution of to GDP was very small. So India had, or the Indian industries had very small contribution to the GDP. Then limited area of operation of public sector. So the public sector just operated in limited areas, like in the railways, power generation, communications, and so on. So their operation was limited. Then there is a small box in page number 4, where it discusses about the textile industry in Bengal. So there is a cotton textile industry in Bengal, a famous cotton textile industry named Muslin, and it was situated in Dhaka. Now it is the capital city of Bangladesh, and they produced a finest variety of muslin, and those finest variety of muslin or such cotton was named as malmal. So that's all about this chapter about these topics, that is the low level of economy or economic development, then agricultural sector, and the final one, that is the industrial sector. So just go through the points, and I hope this video is very clear to you and very helpful for you. So please do like, share and subscribe my channel, and message or comment your queries in the comment section.